the National Park Hospital stuff?
I haven't even seen it.
You just got it. We got it, I guess, while he was gone.
Yeah, we got a little while back.
When I
We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's City Board of Directors meeting for this meeting on Tuesday, March 19th. We have a relatively short agenda, and well, actually a very short agenda. And but at this time, I'd like to call upon Sergeant John Schroeder, Garland County Sheriff's Department, for the invocation, followed by Hot Springs Department Fire Chief Ed Davis. Please rise.
Thank you, Mayor. Father, come before you in the name of Jesus, lifting up this group, lifting up the mayor, lifting up the directors, asking for a hedge of protection, a wall of fire around them, asking for wisdom and peace to rain down in this room tonight, asking that each and every person representing their districts here would do so with diligence, and that they would have your blessing and your peace and your wisdom in their minds tonight. In Jesus' holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll call the meeting to order, and please call the roll.
Davidson.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Weatherford. Here. Garcia.
Here.
Folly.
Here.
McCabe.
Here. Consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda or items from the consent agenda you'd like to have moved to new business?
Mayor, so move.
We got a motion to approve.
Second.
We got a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Consider approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. The first being the special meeting held on February 26, 2019. The second being the regularly scheduled meeting of March 5th, 2019. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented for February 26th and March 5th, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. Board of Directors have any guests they'd like to recognize tonight? Moving right along. The City Manager's report.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. The City of Hot Springs is developing a wayfinding program to help residents and visitors find their way to and from key destinations in Hot Springs area. Merge is the consulting company assisting with the planning and design of this project. As a result, Merge will be here in March to give a presentation on their wayfinding analysis. A presentation and meeting of stakeholders and interested parties will be held Thursday, March 21st at 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. and a public meeting presentation will be held on the same day at 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. All meetings will be in room 201 and 202 of the Hot Springs Convention Center located at 134 Convention Boulevard. Your attendance and participation at the stakeholders meeting is highly encouraged and will be highly appreciated. Therefore, please reply to Sheila as soon as you can if you plan on attending that particular meeting, and we'll send that out to you again in another bulletin. Operation Clean Sweep, the city's 3-week multi-departmental concentrated cleanup effort, will begin on Monday, March 25th. Approximately 350 structures are located within this area, which stretches from East Grand to north of Wade Street and Mill Creek Road, including Y Street with East Grand as the northern border. As the board is aware, these are particular cleanups in areas that we do 3 or 4, maybe 5 times a year. Our code department goes through on the first week and will present notifications to the homeowners if there's any violations that they see. The second week, as the solid waste department will come through with CAPS trucks in that specific area daily, picking up anything that's out on the curb to help get these areas, if there's a need to get these areas cleaned up. Then the third week, our neighborhood services goes back through the neighborhood, and any of the violations that are still existing from the notice, they will issue a citation, and we'll give them another 30 days to get that cleaned before they have to move to the next process. Residents invited to Majestic Site redevelopment planning sessions. Hot Springs residents are invited to attend site redevelopment planning sessions regarding the former Majestic Hotel site. There'll be 2 dates, Monday, April 1st from 6 to 8:30 p.m. and Tuesday, April 2nd from noon until 2:30 p.m. These sessions will also be held at the Hot Springs Convention Center, rooms 203 and 204. Those planning to attend are asked to RSVP by sending an email to majesticsite@cityhs.net. That's majesticsite@cityhs.net so that staff preparations can be made. Additional information will be forthcoming. The sessions will be hosted by Kansas State University, their technical assistants to Brownfields, and the University of Arkansas's Fay Jones School of Architecture and Design in the city of Hot Springs. Residents can also submit their ideas and suggestions by clicking on the Majestic Site redevelopment portal that's at the bottom of the city's home screen at cityhs.net. A couple other things. Rabies Drive. The Hot Springs Animal Service is providing a $5 rabies drive on Saturday, April 6th. The event will take place at the Hot Springs Mall in the parking lot in front of Sears from 10 to 2. As well as $5 rabies shots, there will be city licenses and spay and neuter vouchers from the county being passed out and microchipping available. The city licenses are $10 annually for non-fixed animals and $20 for a lifetime. The Garland County Sheriff's Department will give out $50 spay and neuter vouchers, and then microchipping is $20. This has been a huge there's been a lot of participation in this particular program, and so the animal services and our partners with Garland County have come together, and they plan on having several of these events throughout the year versus just 1 or 2 that we've had in the past. Ozark Mission Project is seeking service projects. The Ozark Mission Project is a nonprofit ministry of the United Methodist Church. It will bring youth and adult volunteers to Hot Springs during the week of June 23rd through the 28th to complete service projects. There's no cost to individuals or families in need. If you know of a family or individual that needs help with painting, minor home repairs, yard work, wheelchair ramps, call our Public Information Department at 321-6806. That's 321-6806 for details on how to apply. The application deadline is May the 3rd. And finally, the traffic light at Airport Road. Traffic improvements at this intersection of Airport Road and West St. Louis is now fully functional, including a new section of the street, 2 traffic lights, 2 lighted pedestrian crosswalks, accessible curb cuts, and sidewalks. The state half-cent sales tax helped fund the city's share of the project, which will result not only in greater safety for motorists, but also for pedestrians that walk to area businesses from the nearby neighborhoods. The intersection has statistically been one of the most accident-prone areas of the city. So, I was talking to Denny. I think this has been almost an 8-year project from the time we started this particular traffic signal. So, congratulations to Denny and all the hard work that he's put into that project. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you very much. This time we'll entertain announcements from directors on upcoming events. Anybody got an upcoming event? Nobody has an upcoming event? Okay, well, we can't leave without an upcoming event. The 2020 St. Patrick's Day Parade.
What?
Due to leap year, with a February 29th, it's going to be pushed to a Tuesday. So we'll be hard pressed to generate the enthusiasm and the attendance that we had experienced this past weekend. And I was very thankful that Monday came around, because 3 days of St. Patty's Day is kind of a lot of work to participate. So we had a great weekend, and look forward to many more of those. So.
Is that going to be during spring break?
Pardon?
You know if that date is on spring break, during spring break?
Oh, I'm sure it'll be in a spring break window.
I mean, for the city of Hot Springs.
We'll
Okay.
cancel our
Oh, I don't
meeting.
know.
I think we need to cancel our meeting.
We want to do it right now?
You announce
Put that on the agenda, because I'm not going to be here.
All right, we got our first cancellation of a meeting a year from now. All right. Consent agenda. Action items tonight. We have a consent agenda, and then we have 2 items under new business. And we do have a number of people who signed up for one of the 2 items. Just a reminder that we provide 3 minutes for you to make your points known to the board, and we certainly welcome those, but we ask at the same time that you adhere to the 3-minute window. This time we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor signify by, I need a motion.
So moved, Mayor.
We got a motion. We got Director Jones and Director Garcia. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent
Mayor.
agenda is approved.
Mr. Mayor, I recognize that we really don't go on to discuss items on the consent agenda, but we do have several members of the Parking Advisory Committee in the audience, and I would hope that you would recognize them.
Please.
We have Elizabeth Ferris, Courtney Crouch, Mark Fleischner, and Toddy Petard. Is that right?
Other individuals who have been selected to sit on that advisory committee include Jeff Runyon, Stevie Spargo, and Stacy Roberts. Both Stacy Roberts and Mr. Petard are ex officio members, and but we welcome them and their guidance. So we appreciate your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Our 2 action items, the first being consider Resolution R 1948, and I ask City Attorney to read by title.
Resolution R 1948, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute certain agreements with Energy Arkansas for the removal of overhead power lines along Malvern Avenue. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion in a second and have discussion.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Director Clark, seconded by Director Weatherford, and City Engineer Gary Carnahan is going to
Thank you
give the
so much.
staff overview. Thank you.
Lovely weather, isn't it? Wonderful.
Yes, sir.
So I won't drag the meeting out since we have sunshine still out there. On Malvern Avenue, we, as you know, we have the visionary plan of what we can do with 8 blocks of Malvern Avenue, and we have identified funding for the 2 blocks in the center part of Malvern Avenue at the intersection of Garden Street, where the National Baptist Hotel, the GM Liquor Store, those 2 blocks. And the cost estimate for those 2 blocks is about $775,000, and we are fortunate to have $471,000 of that funded through federal transit and community development block grant monies. So that leaves about $300,000, and of that, $236,116 is needed to put the overhead power lines underground. And we have to do that before we can start the other construction, obviously get all the utilities buried and out of the way. We would like to go ahead and award those. We have proposals from Entergy to do that work, and we'd like to have your approval to go ahead and execute those contracts and start that work.
Any questions of Mr. Carnahan?
Tell them what district that's in.
And that would be in District 2, of course,
Thank you,
our
Mr. Carnahan.
Shining Star
Yes.
District, I think it's called.
We didn't get any National Endowment for the Arts money for that, did we? Is that the
No,
one that
we did
tried?
not win that grant. We need to look again to see, and hopefully, once we have some actual construction work going on, it might strengthen a follow-up
I'd suggest-
grant application.
Yeah, we should try again, because rarely does somebody get an award with their first submission,
Right,
even state grants too, so.
good.
Thank you, Mr. Carnahan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We had no members of our audience sign up to speak on this issue. Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Weatherford,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Folly,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Our final action item tonight is to consider ordinance 1913, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved, Mayor.
Director Jones, seconded by
Second.
Director Davidson. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read by title only, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. City Attorney, please read by title.
Ordinance 1913, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5329, adopting the Hot Springs Plumbing and Gas Code 2003 edition as amended, hereby amending certain sections related to RPZ testing and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Director Jones, seconded by Director Weatherford. And Mr. Spitzer, the City Clerk, will provide the staff overview.
Thank you, Mayor. As the board may recall, this item was tabled at your February 2nd meeting, and really kind of how we got to that February 2nd meeting, I failed to mention it when we brought it to the floor then. Really it was back in October, November. We had during public commentary, a citizen wished to discuss some of the exceptions that Hot Springs Code has when you're talking about RPZ. Those are the backflow preventers for sprinkler systems and the like. And really, Hot Springs does have a couple of anomalies in the existing code. In the effort of time, I'll be as brief as I can. However, I do want to address a couple of meetings that we've had with some of the local plumbing community and those type of professionals involved in the testing and repair of RPZs. So with that, following the tabling of the item, staff met with the plumbing community on March 7th to get some input to inform staff's recommendation to the board on the exceptions to the Hot Springs Code. And at that meeting, there were approximately 10 to 11, I believe, individuals that showed up and gave us their input. We had a good turnout of city staff as well to hear from the utility director, planning and development, chief building official, and Mr. Brad Burks. He is our RPZ program administrator. And with that, the purpose of the meeting, we wanted to hear from them, and the majority of those in attendance presented information supporting the use of the digital testing equipment, which is what the proposed item on the floor deals with. And really the reason for that is from an accountability standpoint. You can use digital or you can use analog testing equipment. And when I say from an accountability standpoint, the digital has a printout. It's relatively specific, and I can pass it around if anyone would like to see it. It provides an exact time and date stamp. There are some various specifics to that RPZ assembly that's been tested, and there's also a sheet that is provided as well. That's what's turned into the city to ensure that those RPZs are tested and they're functioning correctly. So I don't know if anyone would like to see that particular document. And in doing that, both the analog and digital equipment do provide accurate results, although the main point of distinction is that accountability standpoint. So we felt like what's being proposed is possibly a compromise. The compromise is to allow for digital or analog testing results. And in doing some of our research, we tried to determine if there are other municipalities that require specifically a digital requirement on that testing equipment. And from our research, we found that we were one of the only ones that have that requirement. And moving on to a second topic, as I mentioned earlier, dealt specifically with some of the requirements for those testing and repair technicians. The Hot Springs has specifically to do testing and repair, you do need to be licensed. You need to be adequately trained by the state, but you also have to be a licensed plumber, which is a little bit of an exception to the code, which was adopted at the Hot Springs code level. In the meeting attendees, they felt much more strongly about having the importance of having a licensed plumber be the one to do those testing and repair. So with that, we kind of, from a staff perspective, our recommendation to the board is to go ahead with the amendment that was proposed on the digital analog, but from a standpoint on the testing as required, having a licensed plumber. At this point, we would like to get a little more information on that, and we're not necessarily recommending that at this point. And I do believe you've got several attendees in the audience that wish to address the item.
Is it part of the ordinance?
The proposed ordinance only deals with the digital and analog testing equipment.
When you
So now
said you're
we're
not
saying-
recommending, you're not recommending a change in the licensed plumber doing the repair work.
That's correct. That's what's before the board. Only deals with the digital or analog at this point.
I'll try to clarify the procedural aspects of this a little bit. Proposed ordinance 019-13, which is the one that's on your agenda tonight, reads exactly as it did at your previous meeting, that it was tabled. When something is tabled, it must come back to you in the exact same format in which it was tabled. And so all the proposed ordinance deals with is whether it's analog, digital, or if you can have either one of them. If there are any other changes that the board wishes to make with respect to who can do the testing, you would need to do that by way of amendment tonight, or bring it back at another time. You don't necessarily have to handle it tonight. But what Lance is articulating to you is that staff's recommendation, the inspector's recommendation in particular, is that we keep it with a plumber doing the testing.
But that we're no longer going to require digital testing.
If you approve the ordinance as presented tonight, you would allow analog as well as digital
Correct.
testing.
And you said in your meeting with the plumbing community that that's what they came up with, because that's certainly different than what we heard.
There was from the attendees, there was a few of them that spoke really from the accuracy standpoint. I don't think there's any doubt that both provide accurate results in that regard. Really, what it came back to was from the integrity of the process, from the program. Whenever you're dealing with an analog testing system, you do have the ability to possibly not transcribe exactly what the gauges say. Although with a digital requirement, there's a digital printout that kind of provides that backup. But from a standpoint of being an exception to the code, that Hot Springs is really one of the only ones that require that. And obviously there was a reasoning behind it when they adopted it back in 2005. But at this point, we really haven't gotten a lot of pushback on having the digital, but we did get some public comment, and we wanted to bring that to the board for consideration.
Director Garcia?
You said that you weren't making any other recommendations based on that meeting.
Correct.
But at that meeting, you had 10 licensed plumbers. So they're biased toward it being licensed plumbers, not licensed by the state of Arkansas in any other areas. Is that
Actually, at
correct?
the meeting, there was a few plumbers that did wish to make the adjustment. So it
Okay.
was a little back and forth
But
in that
there
regard.
weren't licensed technicians there.
I believe there was one.
One in 10 licensed plumbers.
Correct.
Okay.
Director Polly?
How many facilities or companies are able to do the RPZ testing with digital equipment today?
I believe we've got approximately, what do we got, Brad? 12 to 14 are registered with the city to do that.
So it's not like we're looking for more competition by providing for analog testing.
Correct.
So why,
We do.
I don't understand how this even came to be presented to the board. It would seem that this is a compromise downward in terms of the quality of equipment we've got, as well as the experience of the testers and those who can be held accountable for the testing.
Sure, and
licensing board.
And that's an excellent point. I think you'll hear from some of the attendees on that. The compromise, we felt like having these exceptions, it does provide a much more stringent code for hot springs, but at the same time, it does provide some obstacles, some hurdles for those that would possibly be able to do that type of testing.
I want to make sure I hear this right. There's 12 to 14 plumbing concerns that have digital equipment?
Companies.
Contractors.
Contract. Director Garcia?
But also, isn't it true that half of our RPZ locations have not been tested, or there's not documentation of the testing? So that'd be 1,500?
I can't speak to that directly. I think we've got about 3,200 RPZs in the system.
I might be able to help.
Pardon?
I might be able to help.
Go ahead, Mr. Burrough.
Director Foley, to answer your question, the way this particular item came to the board, one of the board members asked and sponsored this to come to the board, so we brought that to you at an agenda meeting. At that agenda meeting, there was no consensus to take it off the agenda, so it moved forward to a meeting. So when we held that meeting, there were a lot of questions that were still in play, and we had not met with the plumbing community, so the board tabled it until tonight. After that tabling, we did meet with those that expressed interest. I had several that were calling my office wanting to be on that list, as well as the ones that attended that night. So those that we knew wanted to be part of the meeting, we called in, as well as one of the testers who was here that night as well, that's a certified tester, but not a plumber. We went through that meeting. The majority of the plumbers did not want to see a change from digital to allow analog. There was one company that does have digital equipment now. However, he referenced the cost of maintaining that digital equipment and the repair, and stated that if the change is not made as his equipment malfunctions, he was not going to repair those and would no longer be doing the testing. And of course, the certified technician wanted to see the change. So we had one plumbing company and one certified technician that wanted to see a change, allowing digital and analog. All of the other plumbers in that particular meeting wanted it to remain digital. So in our further research, the state health department does they do have a mechanism for plumbers to do all of it. They can take a RPZ on, they can put an RPZ off. They can take it off and put it on. They can repair it, they can test it. A certified technician can only test the RPZ. They cannot take it on or off. A certified repair technician can test and repair, but they cannot take it on or off. So as we went through that, we know that we're much more stringent than what the state regulation is. We tried to determine how that came about, because at one time that was a change in the Department of Health's regulations, and that, from what we understand, was born from smaller communities that had a lot of RPZs but not many plumbers to take care of the RPZs. So they made a change in the Department of Health's regulations, allowing certified technicians. So as Lance developed this, we felt that we were comfortable bringing it to the board in an affirmative that we would change and allow not only digital, but we would also allow analog to meet the State Department of Health's regulation. There are people here tonight that will speak on both sides of that, but we wanted to make sure that we did the research and got you that information, as well as listen to these that are signed up to speak to make that decision. The other point that Lance mentions came up in that particular meeting as well, and whether that should be changed and allow for for certified technicians and certified repair to be involved in the process. Currently, our code reads that a plumbing contractor or master plumber must employ a certified technician or certified repairman to do the work on an RPZ. So our code requires that to go through a licensed plumber. In the amendment, if there is an amendment tonight, we have looked at that and made a recommendation of really three options. One would be to allow master plumbers, journeyman plumbers, and apprentice plumbers to actually remove and install RPZs. They are the only ones that can do that. Secondly, there is a portion of the amendment, if the board so chooses, that would allow all three of those, the master, journeyman, and apprentice plumber, as well as a certified technician, test an RPZ. They would not be able to repair, but they would be able to test. And third, it would remain a master, journeyman, or apprentice plumber to repair an RPZ. So though the state would allow a certified repair technician to repair the RPZ, that is not part of the amendment that we had drafted for you if you so choose to make that amendment. So that is also another somewhat compromise within what we heard from this group. So master plumbers or a licensed plumber would be the only ones that could remove or install a RPZ. A technician could test, and any repair would have to be done by a master, journeyman, or apprentice plumber. Tonight, unless there's an amendment, that will remain as our code is today, that those certified technicians must be in the employ of a licensed plumber. What's before you now is whether we make the change in the code and allow analog and digital. As Lance mentioned, part of that research, we could not find another city in the state of Arkansas that required only digital. We could not find a city in the nation that required only digital. So that is one of the reasons that we wanted to bring that up to you and put that in that BARF today. So it is something that's unique to us. I can understand why. And you know, really, I think the key, as we learn through these RPZs and these backflow preventions, when you're dealing with an industry or a commercial property, there's much more risk that you could have something happen. A main could break and we could suck something back into that backflow without an operating RPZ. So commercial and industrial is what really caught our attention as staff. And it was also the recommendation of our backflow prevention supervisor and our chief building official. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Burrough?
Yeah, if there's a desire to introduce an amendment, is now the time to do that?
It is. I think that Mr. Burrough covered it pretty well, but I actually have written it if you would like for me to read what the amendment would be.
Okay.
Pardon? Well, yeah,
The amendment as to no change?
Do you want to wait until after you've heard from everybody before you hear the amendment?
Yeah, I would. Thank you.
We have a number of individuals that have signed up to speak on this issue, some for and some against, and we'll go down the list here on the for side. Matt Estridge, would Matt come forward, please? This is for the revision. Please state your name and address, please.
Matt Estridge, 11 Gloucester Court. I'm for the change. I currently do not own digital equipment. I own analog equipment. And the reason I do is because the cost of digital equipment is just beyond my means. And I would ask the board to consider changing a policy where you have to be a plumber here. I mean, that's not state code. And we are the only water company here that enforces that has that law here in this state. And I just ask that we change that.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Estridge?
You currently work for a plumber?
Sir?
Do you currently work for a plumber?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Are you certified? Did you take a test
Yes, ma'am,
with
I am
the
state-
Arkansas Department of Health?
Yes, ma'am. I am state certified to test RPZs. And as far as the repairing them, I know you have to be a plumber to install, remove, or replace an RPZ, but when you're repairing an RPZ, most of them are repaired in line, which you can do that. As long as you do not take them off, you can repair them in line as long as you are state certified to do that. It's just like testing.
Director Garcia?
Is the test you take to be certified to test RPZs different, or is it the same? That
The test that I take to test RPZs is the same test that plumbers take. The test you take to repair RPZs is the same test that the plumbers take. The
Okay.
state code says that you have to be a plumber to remove, install, or replace an RPZ, but that's it.
Do you, sir,
Ma'am,
you said you have the analog testing equipment. Where do you use that?
where do you use it?
Yeah, I mean, if you can't use it here, do
Well, you can use it anywhere in the state with the exception of here.
so
any other water
you're currently
district,
doing that, just other places, just
Yes,
not
ma'am.
in Hot Springs.
You can use that
Okay.
analog equipment anywhere for any water district in this state,
Right.
except this one.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Estridge? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next is Tiva Poppy. Tiva, please come forward and restate your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Teva Poppy. I live at 391 Catherine Cove Loop here in Malvern. I have a house. And I'm for the change. I'm a certified assembly tester, and I'm also a certified repair tech. Most of my work is done in the Little Rock area. And I'm asking that you change the code too, not to have to be a plumber, because I'm not a plumber. But I have done testing for the Arkansas State Capitol, the Veterans Cemeteries, the Veterans Hospital, various commercial properties, residentials, and I guess I don't really understand the reasoning behind having to be a certified plumber. I feel that, I'm as qualified as they are. I've been through the schooling, and I take a lot of pride in my work. I want to make sure that things are done right. I've been into Walmart. I've tore down the domestic water backflows, 6-inch backflows. I've flushed the lines. I mean, I've done everything. As long as it's in line, I think Matt made most of the, I think he made most of my points as well. But I have repaired numerous backflows, and I just don't, I would like to expand my business over into this area as well since I have a home here. But at this point, I can't because I'm not a plumber.
Any questions of Ms. Poppy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final speaker on the for side is Mr. Mike Shuffield. Mr. Shuffield, please come forward and restate your name and address, please.
Mike Sheffield, 421 Rock House Road, Piercy. I'm a local landscape irrigation sprinkler system contractor. There's a lot always spoken about, the RPZs, getting the public to get in compliance with getting them tested. There's hundreds of them out there that are not tested. And if you can get, you stated that, made the statement of more competition. Well, if there's more competition and more people doing this to bring the prices down, which the average price to have these things tested is about $100. If you can get more people out there to test them, digital or analog, which the analog would allow more people to get out and have the testing available, then you might possibly get more compliance with this. It's cost prohibitive. People don't want to pay that much for it. It's not that difficult of a test. It doesn't take very long. And there's really no set price, but the average price is about $100. And it takes 5-10 minutes from what I've seen to do the test, give or take a few minutes. So if the analogs are allowed, and also people like Matt are allowed to do it that also do not have to be a master plumber, you'll have more people and possibly you'll get more compliance for the testing. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have a question for Mr. Sheffield? Okay. For those speaking against, we have two individuals. Mr. Lynn Bennett, please come forward and restate your name and your address, please.
I'm Lynn Bennett. I live at 217 Lookout Point, number 15. I'd like to tell you that I'm the original plumbing inspector that was hired to set up the backflow program. It was in late '93. The boss at that time of code compliance said, "We want the strongest program in the state. We want our water to be the best quality water. We don't want to have any trouble." He sent me to the state school, and everybody that goes says this: you don't want to even drink water after you've been there, because they tell all the stories about how easy it is to poison people or get them sick, because most of the things that get in there are odorless and tasteless. So that's how important it is. You don't know you've got a problem until people start dropping. So that's the reason it's so important. So, and then another thing that's just come up is about the cost. I don't think that it's fair for someone to say what the average cost is just off the top of their head. I charge $60, and I'm a master plumber, and nobody complains about my price. They haven't come to me and said that's too high. So, if a person wants to look around, they can find a low price by a master plumber. But at our meeting that you spoke about, one of the things that came up that was really important, I thought, was that the difference between a plumber doing it and using the computer is that a plumber knows what's up the line and down the line more so than someone that's just thinking about testing that piece of equipment. Like if you go to a hospital, you've got to know so many things that are going on, and it takes years. And just so y'all know, it takes 4 years of plumbing school as an apprentice. You take a big test, become a journeyman. Then if you want to be a master, you work for another year as a journeyman under a master, and you go take your master's test. So that's 5 years. You're working full time, 5 days a week, and going to school. And so you really learn lots of stuff, both in the books and on the job. And that is so important when you're out there in the field with this RPZ that's hooked up to our city water, and you can't get closed in about, is this thing going to pass or not? You've got to know what you're dealing with. So there's a lot more to it than just did it pass or not. But back to the computer, because I really want to hone in on that real quick. And it's been said already, that tape, that printout tape is so critical, because it lets Mr. Burks look at that, and he can tell the time, date. He can see if the numbers jive. He can tell everything about that, and he can tell if somebody's trying to do something wrong or not. And with the gauges, which you're thinking about going to, a person could sit at their home and never even use it. They could sit in the people's front yard and never even use them. There is no way for Mr. Burks to know if anything's been tested with those gauges. Whereas there's no way to just fake a tape. You have to be on a machine on an RPZ to make that tape work. And it tells, you cannot make it put a different date, time, or those pressures. You cannot do it. And so y'all need to understand that. And none of this is going to change the price, because the prices are low. Plumbers lose money on these RPCs. I only do it for customers that are my customers, and I do it so some other plumber won't work for my customers. So, I mean, this isn't a big money-making deal. This is just to take good care of my customers. So, I know I've gone long, and I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you. Director Garcia?
Mr. Bennett, do you have an apprentice that works for you?
Yes, ma'am?
And did he do any of the RPZ testing?
No.
In my neighborhood, you had several that you have done, and there was another man working on those, and you said he was working under you.
Yes.
But he wasn't a master plumber.
No. There only has to be one master plumber, and
But
that's
he
me.
wasn't doing the work. A master plumber was not doing that work.
Well, you just don't understand the way it works. The
I
man,
understand he wasn't a master plumber.
well, I know, but you don't understand the rules. The deal is, the man that you saw is a journeyman plumber, and he is my tester. Okay? So that's the way it works. You have to have a master plumber that's over the company, and then you have to have a legal plumber to do these tests.
But our regs say a master plumber has to do it.
No, that's not true.
I don't think that's
No?
right.
Is that true, City Manager?
There has to be a master plumber.
Your current provision that's found under Ordinance 5629, Section 1, Paragraph 18B says the plumbing contractor or master plumber responsible for the RPZ assembly must employ a state-certified testing and repair technician who shall install, test, and if needed, repair the system RPZ assembly.
So a certified technician can do it now?
If they're employed by a master plumber.
Oh, they can't do it as a contract themselves,
Correct.
but they can do it for a plumber.
Correct.
Okay.
And the whole theory there is the master plumber has so much knowledge because he's been doing it so long that he can oversee to keep things from going wrong.
But why should Hot Springs be the only city in the state of Arkansas requiring that?
Well, do you want to feel good when you drink your water? I do.
I do.
Okay. Well,
But
the
half of
reason-
ours aren't being tested now. The most important thing to me is having the testing to prevent backflow.
Well, let me say this, and I'm going to be as nice as I can say this. That's all changing now that Mr. Burks is employed here.
Well, I trust Mr.
No,
Burks.
wait, see, you missed my point. Now that Mr. Burks is doing the job, it's all going to work out. It
He's
wasn't-
ensuring that their tests are going to be done.
Yes,
Yes, I
he is
believe that.
he is really doing a fine job.
Mr. Bennett, what is is there such a thing as a fail rate on these RPZs where they're actually?
Well, I can only tell you what I see, and it's not very high. In Ms. Garcia's neighborhood, I have the bulk of them in there, and if I have, let's say there's 80 that I do, there might be 4 that fail. So there's not very many, but you sure don't want one of those to get by you, you know. You got to make sure. And you got to remember, the lawn sprinkler RPZs is the least hazard. You know, then you work up to like mortuaries, funeral homes, hospitals. You know, there's so many things that are connected to our city water.
I understand your point about, backflow, and you stress that really hard about it getting back into the system, and we having a licensed plumber, master plumber, overseeing whoever does that, but no other city in the state of Arkansas has that, and I've never heard of some big outbreak in their water system because they have a technician doing it. Now, to me, that's not a legitimate point that you're making there, because I've never heard of Little Rock or Mena or any place else having an outbreak in their water system.
Well,
you have an answer for that?
Well, I can talk about it. I don't know of one in the state of Arkansas, but when you go to that school, they just give you case after case after case of places that have had something go wrong, because something wasn't tested properly or something was overlooked. And, you know, thousands of people either got sick, I mean, thousands didn't die, but some died, and thousands got sick because of these RPZs not being taken care of properly. And do we want that to be Hot Springs, Arkansas? I don't. I've lived here all my life. And we want to be the leaders, not the followers. And I understand, you know, that came up in our meeting about that nobody else has this.
But do we want to be the only one in the state of
Yes, we definitely want to be the only one. And maybe some, because this is what it's supposed to be. And people have
But the health
lowered their
department
standards.
doesn't say that.
Say it again?
Health department doesn't require
Well,
that.
back when I started it, the rules were more stringent. And like I told them in that committee meeting or the meeting we had, the state has to do everything statewide. They're working off of a code that's 16 years old right now. So they've got some trouble. So, you know, and you have to remember, let me tell you this. I taught the plumbing school for a long time. And what we teach the apprentices is the state code is the minimum code. Any other code can be more stringent, but it can't be less. In other words, if Hot Springs decide to change something, they can't go less than the state code, but they can go stronger. And that's just the way things like that work. And you don't want to ever be just at the state code if it's real important. You want to be stronger. So I'm just pleading with you that you not change this. Because, and one point I want to make, if you go to the gauges, it's going to open up to people that, well, let me say this. When I would teach that plumbing school, I would tell my students the first definition was, what's a plumber? And it's the guardian of health. That's what's in the books. Well, if you do 5 years of plumbing school and you're being taught how important it is to not blow somebody up with gas and not to get them with their sewer and not to get them sick with their water, if you hear all that for that long a time, you're going to do a better job out there at this RPZ than somebody that, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but somebody that doesn't do that. You know, that they just go up to that RPZ and they test it. They can't even take it out, you know. And then one other point I'd love to make so you'll understand about protecting these customers is that, can you imagine having somebody that is not a master plumber, you've called them out to your RPZ, they go into the process of working on it, and then it fails, and they can't finish the job. So they charge you for what they've done, and then the poor customer has to call a licensed master plumber to start all over. It's horrible to even do that to these folks. Just have a licensed plumber do the work and be done with it. And this sounds ugly, but I said it in the meeting. Those folks, if they want to do this real bad, go to plumbing school. It's not that they can't do this. They just need to be doing it the way we all have to do it. So.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final speaker on the subject is Mr. Dave Broughton. Please come forward, Mr. Broughton, and state your name and address, please.
My name is Dave Broughton. I live at 307 Shady Hills. I would like to see the digital gauge stay the way that it is right now. All the people that are approved for testers in the city of Hot Springs, I think I was the newest one to do it, and I've probably been doing it 6 or 7 years. It only cost me $2,500 to buy the gauge, and I did it so that I could provide for my customers. And I will do it for anybody, but it was mostly to do it for my customers. I don't see any real benefit of switching to an analog type gauge when everybody that's here now is using them and they're working fine. So I would just like to see it stay the same. And if somebody, wants to come into this town, like I say, I bought my gauge for $2,500, and I think that's only $1,000 more than what they're paying for a gauge. And if they want to do that, then they're more than welcome. We're not trying to run anybody out. Just follow the rules that we have here. And that's all that I've got to say.
Any questions of Mr. Broughton? Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we have these sign-up sheets, and we try to be as formal as we can. There might be somebody who might have come in a little later than and didn't have a chance to sign. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this that came in a little bit after the sign-up sheets were picked up? Please come forward and state your name and address, please.
My name is Elwyn Guthrie. I'm with City Plumbing, Heating, and Electric. I am one of the owners. I did a little bit of research to see what was being charged in the Little Rock area where most of these people are testing that came forward tonight. And the answers I got was one of them charged $131 for an RPZ test. The other one only told me less than $200. So as far as the cost that's associated with bringing analog gauges in, that I don't think that will make any difference, and that seems to be what people are talking about. Another point is we want to test as many people as we can, but we're not the police. You are. And so we have, of course, we put people on route. We give them a lower test rate because we can do that if we put them in their neighborhoods and go and test them all at one time. And we are like half of what they're charging in Little Rock. So the price has nothing to do with it.
Any questions?
Do you test here in Hot Spring?
I'm actually a licensed tester, and I'm not a plumber, but I only learned it to know what was going on.
What kind of equipment do you use?
We use the digital testing. Yeah, we actually have 4 machines.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Mayor, I'd just like to say that Brad Burks is here with us tonight, and this is actually Brad's second tour of duty with the city. Brad was very instrumental in setting up the software that we currently use for our backflow prevention. We did have some issues with a previous employee, and some of that did escape some of the tests. Want to be open with that. However, our commercial and industrials were continuing to be tested, as well as many of the residentials. But we did see some anomalies in there where some of the testing on some of the RPZs were not being done. Since that time, we have taken our data from our utility billing in our sprinkler meters and are cross-referencing that with the software that we use for our backflow prevention. Any of those that are not within our code, which have not been tested in the past year, we are sending them a letter making them aware that we need that test. It's not for us to go out there and get those. They have them done by the plumber, and those are submitted to Mr. Burks, our backflow preventer supervisor. Now, in addition to that, this is coming into the time of year where RPZs are typically reinstalled or at least tested for use. Working with Randy Outler with our utility billing, as people call to have those RPZs turned back on, or the meters for the RPZ turned back on. We are also going to have a second catch, and we're not going to turn those back on without the testing data in the backflow software. So we've got a couple of safety nets there that we're working on to catch these and make sure that we're getting those. And Mr. Burks is here tonight. He's probably the most knowledgeable person regarding our backflow prevention system. And if you have any questions for Brad after what you've just heard, then he's here tonight and we'll be glad to speak.
Mr. Burks, we always hate putting anybody on the spot, but did you want to come up and make any comments regarding your program or the direction that we're headed here?
The main thing that I wanted to add is that the City of Hot Springs, we convey water with a purveyor of 145 square miles. So that means that I myself have to take care of 145 square miles of backflow prevention program. The plumbers, they help me tremendously out there. They're like my eyes and ears. They report what is going on because they have the knowledge, they have the experience, they know where problems do or don't exist. And so they're out there to help us keep our water safe. They understand what type of contaminants can go into the potable water supply. And I believe, I'm not saying that the testing technicians don't have that knowledge also, but I know the plumbers here in this town, and they are super experienced and they're super helpful with the City of Hot Springs, letting us know where problems do arise. And I'm afraid that if we do away with the plumbers not being exclusive testers, then I will lose some of those eyes and ears that we have out there in the field. That's the concern that I have, because there's no possible way for me to cover all this area without their help. And they help tremendously. They let us know what is wrong, what is right, and they're a great help to the City of Hot Springs, and I do not want to lose that help with them.
Director Garcia.
Do you have any reason to believe that state licensed testers would not, in the community, would not provide the same feedback to you?
I'll give you an example. We had this meeting, I believe it was March 4th, 5th, whatever it was, and at the end of the meeting, we also have other codes that are more strenuous than Arkansas State Plumbing Code. One of them is like CPVC piping. We don't allow CPVC piping in the City of Hot Springs because it's a lesser material than what we would want to be in our piping system. And we had a gentleman speak about CPVC piping after the meeting, and he wasn't a plumber, but he wants to test RPZ valves, but he doesn't even know what kind of pipe is installed on RPZ valves. And so I'm afraid that if we get somebody with that knowledge of how to test valves, but they don't understand what they're testing upstream of it, what is that saying about our potable water supply? That they have no idea what's upstream, they have no idea what the contaminants can do to the people. They don't understand, like Mr. Bennett was saying, what boilers do, what, you have aspirators in funeral homes that not only suck bodily fluids out, but it adds, potable water in there to it, and it mixes, and if there's a backflow contaminant in that, then, the people real close to that mortuary or whatever are going to be the first people to drink that. And I just don't believe that a testing technician without a plumbing license has that knowledge to be able to go in there and tell us what the problems are, and I truly believe that plumbers do have that knowledge to further help us.
But you haven't had any experience of that. You're talking about one comment, and you're a master plumber, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that bias your view? That you lean towards the higher licensing?
Yeah, I do lean towards the higher license, yes.
Mr. Burks, on the your program is aimed at getting compliance. Where do you think we're headed with that? I mean, is this a 5-year project, a 2-year project, or how does this work to ensure that when they connect to our water supply? Is this an annual testing?
Yeah, it's an annual testing, and by the end of this season, we want to be up to the 90 percentile on all of our tests.
So the issue of people not getting them tests, that hopefully is a thing of the past.
There it is.
And we're on a new direction here.
Yes, we are. Yes, ma'am.
Director Clark.
I don't understand a whole lot about this truthfully, but you mentioned software. Does the software need the digital printout, or?
No, ma'am, it does not.
Those are not connected things?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Director Foley.
I would just like to make a comment to Mr. Burke. We asked you to come up here as the expert, and so any reference to you maybe being biased, I hope you would be biased with your expertise. So I just want to express my appreciation for your comments.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Mr. Burks? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I think it's important for the board to also know that we do have the ability to get this compliance this year. When we go through that software, if we have accounts that we've notified that have not brought that testing or has not had that testing submitted to us, we have the ability to lock that meter out. And we're taking a hardline approach. First, we're going to notify to make sure that all those that we don't have current data on are aware that we need it. And if we don't get it, then we'll go to the next step and actually shut that meter off until we do get it. So we are going to reach the 90 percentile and hopefully more than that as we move through the process. But I did want the board to know that we do have that ability to make sure that we achieve that compliance.
Director Garcia?
I will just have comments. I wholeheartedly agree with this last statement in the BARF to provide a safeguard to the public's health, safety, and welfare by requiring only licensed professionals to come into contact with our municipal water system. And we're on track to get into compliance to ensure we have those testing in compliance for all our RPZ customers. I received a letter, and I'm not going to read the whole letter, but I distributed a copy to each board member from Mr. Greg Jones, and he does a backflow testing, and he is talking about for bigger customers, they like to do a contract for the whole state. And having worked for a large corporation, I understand this because this is what we did. And I have heard from businesses in District 5, we support all of our small businesses, our local businesses, but we're also very happy for our national chains that are here. And often they try to get state contracts to handle all of their locations within their franchise in a region or in the state. And they have testers in all their other cities except Hot Springs that does not allow, even though the state code for the Arkansas Department of Health, and I too did not understand all this, so I contacted them. And that it meets all the requirements, and I checked the other cities. No other city was requiring it. In larger cities, Little Rock didn't require it, but Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, all these cities that have a lot of growth are not requiring it. And I'm a licensed certified public accountant. So as that type of an accountant, I would think that I would offer the highest credentials or anyone with those credentials to prepare your tax return since this is tax season. However, the code allows for tax preparers that are not certified public accountants to file with Internal Revenue or for the state of Arkansas if they meet certain training requirements. So I believe that we can let the consumers decide which they choose, if they want a plumber with digital or analog, or if that makes a difference, as long as they're doing it properly and accurately, and they are licensed professionals. And since we've heard from these people, I'd like to hear from the city attorney the amendment.
Okay. Director Garcia, if you were to want to amend the proposed ordinance before you tonight, again, pointed out to you that paragraph B under paragraph 18 of the old ordinance lumped it all together. It deals with the installation, the testing, and the repairs all in one section. So I carved those out into three distinct ones. So it would read as follows: that Section 1 of Ordinance Number 5329 as amended is further amended such that paragraph 18B is deleted and the following substituted so as to read as follows. 1. A plumbing contractor, master plumber, journeyman plumber, or apprentice plumber responsible for the RPZ assembly must employ a state-certified testing and repair technician who shall install an RPZ assembly on lawn sprinkler systems. 2. A plumbing contractor, master plumber, journeyman plumber, apprentice plumber, or a state-certified testing and repair technician shall annually test the RPZ assembly on lawn sprinkler systems. And 3, a plumbing contractor, master plumber, journeyman plumber, or apprentice plumber responsible for the RPZ assembly must employ a state-certified testing and repair technician who shall make all repairs to a RPZ assembly on lawn sprinkler systems. So if there is to be a motion, it would be in that form.
I would make the motion that we amend
hear
the
you.
excuse me, I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion to amend the proposal with your third option, which requires master plumber, journeyman, or apprentice to do the work, or hire a certified technician or certified repair person, but they're working under the master plumber. Is that my understanding of your third option?
Those were not three options. That's one motion.
Yes.
That's one amendment to Section 2, which would amend Section 1 of the old ordinance to have 3 paragraphs instead of 1.
I so move.
Second.
Let's have a
Can you give us a
discussion.
minute? Can you give us a minute to read this?
Yes, so
please?
you have a motion and a second to amend. You can have all the discussion you want on this amendment.
This amendment still does not allow a state-certified testing and repair technician to function independently.
It does allow them to function independently with respect to testing. Paragraph 2 is different than paragraphs 1 and 3. You'll see that paragraphs 1 and 3 require that they be employed by the plumber. Paragraph 2 states that any of those professionals that have been listed would be authorized to test the RPZ.
So there's
not to install, not to repair.
And that's in compliance with the Arkansas State Department of Health.
It would be in compliance with state code, yes.
Well, the existing code is also in compliance with the State Department of Health, correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I will add that the state code is a minimum.
Right. So we have a motion.
We have a motion
an
and
amendment?
a second on the to amend, and we're into the discussion phase.
I don't see any reason to change the existing language of our code relative to the qualifications as a testing repair technician, period, that we currently have.
I understand that the technician license is the same test that the plumbers take for testing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that we wouldn't want to allow them, since we're the only city in the state of Arkansas that doesn't allow it. I don't see that it's helpful that the more people that we can provide services, we can make sure we hit our mark on making sure all RP assemblies are tested.
You know, you gave a reference, Director Garcia, to your qualifications as a certified public accountant. I worked in the healthcare industry for 30 years, and I can tell you that you would never let a physician who is trained to deliver a baby without being certified to deliver babies in your community. I mean, physicians are trained to do everything in our community, and yet they don't get privileges because the standard of care is determined by the experts in the community, and they say, unless you're certified in this particular specialty, you don't get to practice in that specialty. So it's not acceptance of the average. It's only acceptance of the highest level of care you can give.
Right.
And
but
so
we
that
certainly have a lot more APNs, and they will ask you, do you mind seeing them instead of the doctor when you make an office visit? So things, as long as you're able to, and they write prescriptions, it's within the law. I'm not asking
you're
for
comparing
something
apples
else.
and oranges. You're
Well, I
comparing
say
apples
you
and
are
oranges.
too.
Well, I'll weigh in a little bit. I thought we were trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And when a number of months ago, when this came up under the public comment section at the close of the meeting, there was a discussion about this issue, and then it from a gentleman, and from that, you know, the staff did some research, and there was a lot of discussion about, well, you know, we don't. It's costly to do it. It's not being done by providing a less costly service. We could enhance or increase compliance. But then, like tonight, and we've had some meetings. The staff has done a good job of reaching out to the community on this, and then I learned today that it's not that we don't have enough people doing the tests, and it's really not even the cost of it. And so I get down to what are we trying to solve here, and I'm not sure we have a problem. We're solving a problem here tonight. I could see where the analog, for some plumbing contractors would be a appropriate substitute, or to the digital, but to move away from the oversight of a plumbing contractor, I'm not sure that that solves any problem. Mr. Burks indicated that he's targeting at 90% compliance. The city manager thinks we can go higher than that. I got the feeling that with the sprinkler system season coming on, that Mr. Burks was being somewhat conservative, and I think as long as they know where the valves are, we're going to get a letter out to them and get it done. So, I won't be supporting the amendment. I will. That's on the floor right now. I could support the original.
Mr. Mayor,
ordinance.
I brought forward from my constituents and from property owners in my district, and that's what I told them I would do when they came to me, and I heard more from them, so I called the question.
So we have a call the
Amendment.
Motion's been called and it's been seconded.
Please call the roll.
Jones.
No.
Clark.
No.
Weatherford.
Yes.
Garcia.
Aye.
No.
Folly. Davidson.
No.
McCabe.
No. Motion to amend fails, which puts us back to the
Original motion.
Original
and I call
motion
the question
on-
on that one.
part.
I call the question on the original motion.
Call the question. Do we need a second on that? or-
I'd like to clarify
Second
the
on the
motion, please.
Pardon?
I'd like to clarify the motion. What are we voting on?
Agree.
The original.
You're voting on
What's in your board
the
packet?
proposed ordinance that's presented to you tonight, which would allow for analog or digital testing methods.
Okay, thank you.
So we got a motion to call the question. We got a second. Please call the roll.
Clark.
No.
Weatherford.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Folly.
No.
Davidson.
Confused. No.
Jones.
No.
McCabe.
Aye. I think the noes
have it.
Noes have it.
Fails.
Amendment to the original ordinance fails, so we stand as we are. So with that, we have that concludes the action items of the evening. For only two action items, we spent a lot of time on those two action items. Thank God we don't have another three of that kind. So, but be as it may, we're happy to hear it inside and out and upside down. And at this time, we'll have board commentary. Any board member have a item they'd like to discuss? Director Garcia.
I just wanted to thank you, Mayor, and for Tracy Berry that came out for our meeting in District 5, received excellent feedback and the information shared. And there's a lot going on at the Northwoods, and I think they're averaging over 90 people a day out there. Great. And all of the activities, it's great for Hot Springs, and also wanted to recognize Visit Hot Springs this past weekend was incredible with all over Hot Springs. And I received such fabulous feedback from friends and relatives from out of town that spent the weekend here, and we're glad they spent their money here. and want to recognize them and thank everyone.
Very good. Thank you. Director Foley.
I'd like to make a shout out to the city staff who protected the public as well as cleaned up after the public in short order. And while he's not an employee of the city, he certainly represents us well as Elvis, Director Carol Weatherford.
My share of destroying the streets, I'm sorry. I told him to send me a bill.
Director Davidson.
Yeah. This is a comment to Director Garcia's comment. The traffic on Highway 7 in Park Avenue area has just tripled in the last year. And we no longer have houses available. If a house comes available, it's taken. But what I'm seeing is the speeding that is taking place from people coming up Highway 7 into Park Avenue. So I'm sorry that the police chief wasn't here because I'm going to call him and say, get a car down there because folks are just flying up Highway 7 as they enter the city limits.
Very good.
I'm just hoping nobody gets hurt because we have a lot of walkers and bikers up there. So.
Director Clark, did you have anything? I'll just make a comment, just kind of ditto what Director Weatherford.
I would just...
I thought the Elvis thing kind of threw you off.
It got me for a minute.
Yeah.
I would just, go back to what Mrs. Davis said about traffic. Traffic is really tough everywhere. It's not just Park Avenue. I mean, wherever you go, and that's only a sign of being good for City of Hot Springs.
If you
were out this weekend and did anything at any of the functions that was going on, you would see that. We are a city that's just, to me, it's amazing what's going on here and what we have going on. It's incredible for the City of Hot Springs. I would complain about the traffic, but I'm not because it means that we are doing great.
America's #1 resort.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Last 3 days or 4 have just been tremendous downtown, but I'm real anxious to see the numbers from the Convention and Visitors Bureau as to
it was
the number
probably
of people
crazy.
they think we have.
And if you did
visitors.
not attend the parade, you really missed something. You need to make
I think there was so many wonderful activities. I met people. It seemed like the half of Dallas was in town, and then I met people from Shreveport and Memphis and West Memphis, and I thought personally, one of there were so many good things, but when the Sentinel Record captured it all, I believe, with the picture of the 0K run, that first wave, and the expression on those little kids and their eyes darted to the right or left, looking at their competitor, and that was priceless. That was a great picture.
I will mention one thing about you're talking about the repeat coming back. Every year I get more and more people to have a picture with them from a fake Elvis, okay? I mean, people love that. I don't, but I had occasion of 2 times this time, people from last year hunted me up for a picture for this year.
Cool.
So they're coming back every year for this.
Yeah.
I met some people in the grocery store into Oaklawn.
Wow.
I gave somebody
They had a
directions
ball
to-
at Oaklawn racetrack now.
Mayor, you
Don't
mentioned
leave that 40,000 out.
you mentioned the picture in the Sentinel Record, and somebody had mentioned the Northwoods earlier, but the picture of the gentleman putting the bike on, or his tire on his bike at the station, I believe he was actually at Cedar Glades riding through Northwoods. So that connection is really working. The gentleman was from Honduras.
Wow.
Was he?
So I mean it's blowing up.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a great time to be in Hot Springs.
I want to add on to Director Garcia about the Northwoods. Tomorrow night is they have a series of full moon rides. And so there's be a contingent of, it's called a no drop ride, which doesn't mean you don't fall. It just means that they won't leave you behind and you get lost. So,
Well, you better get in front then.
Mayor, on that note, I want to remind everyone that the city is protected by tort immunity.
all right, I think we're trying to make it to 8:30, and I think we're running out of material. So, Director Jones, do you have anything?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, turn off the lights. Thank you.